Hello, BookTube. I've got some new arrivals for you on a hot, humid Friday here in Boston. And the first book in the pile is, well, it is a new arrival. It's new arriving to me, but it's not new, and it's not new to me either. It's this. It's Undaunted Courage by Stephen Ambrose. his famous best-selling book about the Lewis and Clark expedition that I remember just loving. When did this come out? This is probably the 1990s. Uh, yeah, look at that. There it is. The story of Thomas Jefferson and the Lewis and Clark expedition. 1996. This came out in 1996. There was a time, a few weeks there, where every other customer coming through the door, coming to my information desk, was wanting this book. The book about courage. And as I joked at the time to all of my poor coworkers, I remembered when that very same cycle of every other customer coming in and saying they want the book about courage would have been about Profiles in Courage by President Kennedy, not Undaunted Courage by Stephen Ambrose. And Stephen Ambrose went on to have his name blackened for fabrication and plagiarism. I'm not sure I'm 100% up on the details of that, but he went through the ringer before he died. But this book, I remember reading it and loving it. I'm a big fan of the Lewis and Clark expedition. I'm a big fan of Bernard DeVoto's editing of the journals of Lewis and Clark. A brand new hardcover copy came to me. I wasn't going to turn it down. I'm happy to add it to the history section. Yes, those of you who are bean connoisseurs, there she is, just being her adorable self. If she's feeling a little bit deflated because it's a little bit overcast today, which you'd think would help with the heat and humidity, but it's decreased the heat just a little bit. The humidity has gone through the roof. It must be in 85% humidity. All allegedly because a cold front is coming, because a front of storms are coming, torrential rain, and even thunder and lightning. I predict what I tend to predict in these cases, which is that none of that will happen. That the fact that 100% of all forecasters in Boston are saying, yeah, we're certainly going to get socked with rain later this afternoon, especially overnight. The fact that 100% of those forecasters are saying that means it won't happen, means 100% won't happen. I once again predict, as I have predicted 5 times out of the last 6, I have been right. I've made this prediction 6 times, and 5 times out of 6, I've been right. I'm going to predict again that not a single drop of rain will fall on the greater Boston area in the next 24 hours. I can hope that maybe there is some truth to a cold front. The cold front looks to be as broad as the continent, so it'd be pretty hard to misplace. It'd be nice if the humidity went below 70%. It's at 85% right now. It'd be nice if it went below 70%. It'd be nice if any kind of action, breath, movement of any kind didn't require a long shower and then a long recuperative period in air conditioning. It'd be nice if the air weren't a sauna on its own. But how did I get on that subject? It doesn't take much to get me to complain about things. Oh, right. Undaunted Courage is our first book. That came to me. But that's the only curveball that I'm going to throw you. All the rest of these things are indeed brand new. Starting with this one. This is by Nick Davis, and it's called Competing with Idiots. This is about Herman and Joe Mankiewicz, a dual portrait of the movie moguls. So what? There you go. All About Eve, Citizen Kane. These two were familiar with, were responsible for a lot of the classics of movie theater history. So what do we got here? I don't think I have a sheet on this at all. No. All right. A fascinating, complex dual biography of Hollywood's most dazzling and famous brothers. I think you're forgetting the Warner Brothers, maybe, and a dark, riveting portrait of competition, love, and the enmity that ultimately undid them both. Each a brilliant writer, both known for their wit and cynicism, each a meticulous craftsman, and one the most famous for having written Citizen Kane with Orson Welles. The other, All About Eve. I know this is heresy, of course. Citizen Kane is routinely ranked as the single greatest movie ever made. I like All About Eve a whole lot more, but to each his own. It's all subjective, right? Don't get me started. And once again, all the people in the cheap seats saying, we didn't get you started, you start yourself. One who only wrote screenplays, but believed himself to be a serious playwright, slowly dying of alcoholism and disappointment, The other, a four-time Academy Award-winning director, auteur, sorcerer, and seducer of leading ladies, one of Hollywood's most literate and intelligent filmmakers. There's a lot wrong with both of that. I know this is just cover copy, but there's a lot wrong with both of that. The brother in question that we're told is dying of alcoholism was dying of lung cancer. The alcoholism might have been a part of it, but he was dying because he never stopped smoking. Literally never. Went to sleep with a cigar in his mouth. Never stopped smoking. That's what he was dying of. And the other one, let's not talk about seducing leading ladies. Seducing isn't quite what the other brother did with a lot of leading ladies. It wasn't seducing. I mean, a mugger is not sweet-talking you out of your money, right? I don't like the use of that word in this circumstance, but let's move on. Herman Mankiewicz brought us the Marx Brothers, Monkey Business, Horse Feathers, Duck Soup, W.C. Fields' $1 Million Legs, wrote screenplays for Dinner at 8, The Wizard of Oz, co-wrote Citizen Kane, Pride of the Yankees, and 89 others. Talented, witty, Alexander Woolcott thought Herman the funniest man who ever lived. Huge-hearted, a loving husband and father, wildly immature, a figure of renown and success. Herman went out to Hollywood in 1926. His telegram to Hecht back east, that must be Ben Hecht, not identified. Oh, that's bad. That is very bad. You shouldn't. That needed an editor. That telegram is the quote is, "Millions are to be grabbed out here, and your only competition is idiots. Don't let this get around." Becoming one of the highest paid screenwriters in Hollywood, one of those gifted men whose lives slip away in alcoholism and witty conversation. To Orson Welles, Herman, quote, saw everything with clarity. It was always diamond white, nothing muzzy. Joe, 11 years younger, focused, organized, a disciplined writer with a far more distinguished career, surpassing his worshipped older brother, producing The Philadelphia Story, Woman of the Year, and 21 others, writing and directing A Letter to Three Wives and All About Eve, both of whom won him Oscars. All About Eve received 14 Oscar nominations. If you haven't seen All About Eve, you really ought to. And I know that that movie snobs will rank All About Eve far, far above the aforementioned Philadelphia Story. But if you've never seen The Philadelphia Story, oh my, are you missing a movie you are going to love for the rest of your life. Followed by an ambitious but erratic path. Marlon Brando and Julius Caesar. Marlon Brando's turn as Mark Antony and Julius Caesar is something that has to be seen to be believed. I'm pretty sure that the Friends Romans Countrymen speech is on YouTube somewhere. I'm sure that you can find Brando's version of that speech. Worth seeing. Just to decide what you think of it. Guys and Dolls, Barefoot Contessa, Graham Greene's The Quiet American, and his undoing, Cleopatra, the film emerging as an interminable slog, its director never the same again. Yeah, the story of the production of Cleopatra it's an amazing novel all by itself. I always disagree with movie snobs that say that you can see that mess on the screen. I don't think that... Rex Harrison is amazing. Of course, Rex Harrison is never bad. I don't think anyone ever got a better performance out of Liz Taylor than in Cleopatra. I really don't. It's shriekingly bad in some places, as all of her performances are in some places. With Elizabeth Taylor, you're always lucky if the whole thing isn't shriekingly bad. But I don't think anyone ever got better work out of her. And Richard Burton is incredible in Cleopatra. Just amazingly good. So I never quite understand when people... I mean, a lot of people love to tell tall stories about the ordeal of getting this thing onto the screen. Imagine they were originally going to make it 2 movies. One about Caesar and Cleopatra, and then one about Antony and Cleopatra, until enough people came to Mankiewicz and said, nobody wants to see a movie in which Elizabeth Taylor's love interest is Rex Harrison. Nobody's going to want to see a 2.5-hour movie of that. I don't know. Again, I would throw it to you. If you've never seen All About Eve, if you've never seen The Philadelphia Story, then you're missing great movies. And I would love to know what you would make if you watched all of Cleopatra. It's a long undertaking. But I don't know that it will ever disappoint you. I don't know that you'll watch it, and at any point in the 3+ hours, I don't think at any point you'll be watching it and think, this is dragging on. You will think that at certain parts of, for instance, Ben-Hur. But not Cleopatra. I don't think so. Oh, the incredible scene where Cleopatra makes her entrance into Rome. just amazing. Just amazing. But there are also quiet moments that are just fantastic. But anyway, let's get back to the cover copy. In this large, moving portrait, meticulously woven together by the grandson of Herman, Nick Davis is the grandson of Herman Mankiewicz, the great nephew of Joe. We see the lives of these two men, their dreams and desires, their fears and feuds, struggling to free themselves of their dark past, the driving forces that kept them bound to a system they loved and hated, their complex history together and apart, their respective Hollywoods, and the extraordinary times in which they lived and worked. Fantastic. Well, I don't have a date for this at all, but I know that it's not like Undaunted Cars. This doesn't come out in the 90s. This is sometime soon. It might be out already, maybe in September sometime or in early October. Then let's see. What have we got here? We've got a bunch more to go. You just settle in with your popcorn or your cocaine or whatever is your vice of choice. This next one is YA. From Scholastic Press. The minute I mentioned Scholastic Press, a lot of you are going to go all teary-eyed because you remember the Scholastic Book Fair. Oh, wasn't that wonderful? Oh, such cherished childhood memories. Some of us weren't allowed to go to the Scholastic Book Fair merely because we happened to be the foremost suspect in giving the rest of our class Rocky Mountain spotted flea infestation. A frame job, I maintain to this day. This next one is by Jay Coles, who wrote Tyler Johnson Was Here. Some of you read YA might remember that book. I read it and kind of liked it. And this is Things We Couldn't Say. This is Jay Cole's new novel, Things We Couldn't Say. If memory serves, oh great, we have a pub sheet. If memory serves, this is the highest profile yet YA novel about a protagonist who is bisexual, rather than the heterosexual captain of the football team who's struggling with the fact that he may be gay, he may be homosexual, or the homosexual captain of the football team who's struggling with the fact that he can't show that to anyone. Instead, if I remember correctly, this is a high-profile novel about a character who is bi. So let's see if I'm right about that. I should just read it instead of nattering on about it. Let's see here. From one of the brightest and most acclaimed new lights in YA fiction, a fantastic new novel, about a bi black boy finding first love and facing the return of the mother who abandoned his preacher family when he was 9. There are very few queer black male novelists writing contemporary stories. This book fills a huge gap in YA literature. Okay, the demographics of the author don't fill any kind of a gap in the literature. YA literature can only have one gap, and that is how few really good books it has. There aren't any other gaps in literature. But there are, maybe, if I take this publicist at their word, there may be gaps in more representation for the skin color and the sexuality of the authors of the books. I don't see how that's any of the reader's business. Maybe this will be a good book, maybe it won't, but those factors about the author won't have anything to do with it one way or another. I don't see why it merits an exclamation point. But it's good for the author. Very good for the author. Let's see. There are no easy answers to love, whether it's family love or friend love or romantic love. I might put in a note here. It's often been said, some of you have heard the phrase that a dog is the only kind of love that money can buy. That is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. Not money at a pet store, not money at a breeder, money at your local rescue organization. It's love that money can buy, and there are no easy answers to love, except when it comes to that love. That love is easy as it gets. So you should try that. Make the right discussions with your loved ones and the other people in your living arrangement over the weekend. Then go on Monday to your local animal shelter and adopt the 2 oldest dogs who live there. Give them a chance at life. You'll feel better about it for the next 10 years. Anyway, let's see here. In this novel shows us a guy trying to navigate love in all its ambiguity, hoping at the other end he'll be able to figure out who is and who he should be. Okay, I think that should probably read who he is and who he should be. There's always been a hole in Gio's life, not because he's into both guys and girls, not because his father has some drinking issues, Not because his friends are always bringing him their drama. No, the hole in Gio's life takes the shape of his birth mom, who left Gio, his brother, and his father when Gio was 9 years old. For 8 years, he has never heard a word from her. And now, just as he started to get his life together, she's back. It's hard for Gio to know what to do. Can he forgive her like she wants to be forgiven? Or should he tell her she lost her chance to be in his life? Complicating things further, Gio has started to hang out with David, a new guy on the basketball team. Are they friends? Or more than friends? At first, Gio's not sure, especially because he's not sure what he wants from anyone right now. It sounds to me like we're really going to like Gio in this novel. It sounds to me like this is going to be a protagonist we can root for. Do I have a date on this thing? Oh, September 21st. All right, so this is already in your bookstores. I hope it's already in your bookstores. The Barnes & Noble that I went to today, I paid a visit to a Barnes & Noble today, the only big Barnes & Noble in Boston that's not part of a university. And I got the distinct impression that only 2 people were working that day. And that means that if there's more than one person in line at the registers, one of those 2 people has to go and ring at the register for however long that takes. The other person has to answer the phone, can't just not answer the phone, which leaves nobody. And I mean nobody, 0. That leaves 0 people to take a V-cart to the back receiving room where all the new books are unboxed and sorted, fill that V-cart, bring those books out, and put them on shelves so customers even know they're there. So I would hope this is stacked or displayed in your local store. I would certainly hope that. The nice thing about the fact that this pub sheet went out of its way to talk about the demographics of the author and the author's skin color and who the author likes to date. And the nice thing about the fact that the main character in this book is black and also bi is that this will be at the kind of snooty, nose in the air, we'll tell you what to like, thank you very much, local independent bookstore, the crunchy granola bookstore that I tend to rail against. This book will certainly be there. Who knows how many great YA novels will be discounted out of hand because of the skin color or sexuality of the author, because it isn't right, because that skin color and sexuality isn't right. Who knows how many YA novels coming out in September won't pass the snooty, condescending, book-burning owners of those shops' purity tests. Who knows? But this one will. So if this intrigues you, at least it will be available at that bookstore. And since that bookstore gets, 3 cartons of books a day instead of 300, they can uncart them in a timely fashion. They have the staff to do it. Okay, well, all the rest of this looks like it's blurbs. What have we got here? Let's tell you a little about Jay Coles. He's a graduate of Vincennes University and Ball State University. When he's not writing diverse books, okay, but that doesn't mean that he writes Westerns or that he writes multi-part history of black evangelism in America. That doesn't mean, it's not that kind of diverse. It's the other kind of diverse. He's advocating for them, teaching middle school students and composing for various music publishers. Well, that's interesting. I can't remember if Tyler Johnson Was Here had a music theme running through it. I think it did. I wonder if this one will. His debut novel, Tyler Johnson Was Here, is based on true events in his life and inspired by police brutality in America. I think we may have seen that book on this channel. I may have ranted about how those are obvious methods designed to critic-proof the book. He also contributed a story for the #1 New York Times bestselling anthology Black Boy Joy, edited by Kwame Mbalia. Kwame Mbalia rings a bell. Is that Tristan Strong? That rings a bell. Anyway, Jay Coles lives in Indianapolis, which is kind of odd. It should be Brooklyn, shouldn't it? And there's an odd visual at the bottom here. I'm not quite sure what's going on with the visual at the bottom. It's a whole bunch of different authors. He is listed many, many times. Maybe it's a reading schedule. It could be a reading schedule. He has a schedule printed on this list. Most times that doesn't happen. Post-pandemic, most times you don't get a reading schedule because you're not going to go for events. These might be virtual events. One hosted for Brain Lair Books in South Bend, Indiana. Do any of you know that store? Then Loyalty Bookstore in Silver Spring, Maryland. That building wasn't always a bookstore, but that I do know that bookstore. Then the Tattered Cover in Denver, Source Booksellers in Detroit, and Vromans in Pasadena. all of these events list in conversation with. I wonder if that means he'll physically be there, or if these are going to be done by Zoom. Well, one way or another. This came out already. This is out now in your bookstores. This came out on Tuesday, and that is Things We Couldn't Say. New YA. Don't think it's the only. No, it's okay. It is the only YA. The next book here is for kids. This is for actual children, and this is A Tale of Sorcery by Chris Colfer. Absolutely beautiful thing. Just gorgeous. Just absolutely gorgeous product here. And Chris Colfer is also gorgeous, and you will know, a lot of you will know him. He was a star on Glee. And what you might not know about him, if you haven't been paying close attention, is that he has made a gigantic career as a novelist. He's been on the New York Times bestseller list for virtually every book he's ever written. In fact, I think every book that he's ever written. This is Chris Colfer's 18th book, and just the latest addition to his best-selling body of work. With more than 7.5 million copies sold in the Land of Stories series, and the books sold to 35 countries around the world, Chris Colfer is a truly global phenomenon. This is the third book in the Tale of Magic series. This is Tale of Sorcery. Do I get a description? I bet I don't. I bet I don't get a description. Why would I need to have one? The description is not selling these things. I read the first book in this series, and the first book, there's another series as well. I read the first book in that as well. They're abysmally bad. Just abysmally bad. I say they're for children. I say they're for small children. Probably that's just a reaction on my part. Probably the actual marketing for this thing is to YA. It's to young adults, which would be really bad. Do we have any kind of a... Oh, right, okay, here. In A Tale of Sorcery, our heroine, Bristol Evergreen, is running out of time. It's been almost a year since she made a deal with death to find and destroy the immortal in exchange for her life, but she still hasn't found a single clue about who or where the immortal is. To make matters worse, something dark and malignant has risen from deep within the earth, threatening life as we know it. To stop this evil, the fairies and witches must work with all the kingdoms and territories, including the righteous Brotherhood and their army of the dead. But is the threat more familiar than they expected? And why are a secret group of sorcerers convinced Xanthu's hayfield is connected to it? No idea. Of course, that should be why is a secretive group. And that when I saw that mistake, the very first thought I had was that Chris Colfer wrote this pub sheet. Because mistakes like that, gaffes like that, run all throughout the books of his that I have read. They're just by someone who's basically a well-intentioned nitwit, but who has no writing ability at all. Not even, I'm not talking, oh, this plot didn't knit together well. I'm talking no ability beyond, the dreamy, lonely, good-looking boy in middle school who wrote it compulsively in his notebook. No ability beyond that. Oh, wait, this goes on. In the New York Times best-selling A Tale of Magic series addresses themes of bigotry, discrimination, and political unrest. It is also just plain fun for kids, with an ensemble cast of memorable characters and fantasy world unlike any other. The fantasy world is intensely like lots of others. But I don't know... this doesn't actually tell me. I don't think this pub sheet actually tells me the recommended ages for this thing. Have any of you read Chris Colfer's books? You probably disagree with me. You probably really love them. I know they must be popular. It can't, you being a supporting cast star on Glee does not get you onto the New York Times list. So he's doing something right. But I'm trying to... there's nowhere in here that mentions the actual recommended age group for these books. The ones that I read led me to believe they were for children. And the sheet mentions kids, so maybe so. I don't know if I would understand this without having read the one in between. So I'll give it a try, and if too much is going by me, I'll just skip it. Then this next one, there's an argument to be made that this is also for kids. But I don't know any children who read this thing. I know only adults who do. And the whole time, I've only known adults who did. So I don't think this is actually for love-struck teenagers at all. This is Archie Comics. The Archie Comics. This is the best of Archie Comics, 80 years. Archie has been around for 80 years. And this is a big, fat anthology, all in color, of those 80 years. So we get, this includes the modern incarnations, where Archie is a hunk. but it includes everything else too. It goes all the way to years and years, decades ago. So let's see what we have, what we can learn about this thing. The one thing I'd like to know is the pub date on it, and I don't think this is going to tell me. Oh my God, it isn't going to tell me. If we don't look a day over 75, I know we don't look a day over 75, but Archie Comics is celebrating its 80th anniversary this year, and we're commemorating the occasion the only way we know how, with a huge treasury of comics. And notice the treasury is kind of digest size, like Archie digests always were. This month sees the release of the long-awaited trade paperback collection, The Best of Archie Comics, 80 Years, 80 Stories, and it's packed with so much stuff we almost don't know where to begin. So let's begin at the beginning. Starting in the present day and working all the way back to the very first appearance of Archie Andrews, the 700-page book features a story from each year of Archie Comics history, carefully curated to represent everything that makes Archie unique and memorable across the decades. Editorial essays and backstories guide us along the way, pointing out historical moments, notable creators, characters, introductions, series launches as you go back in time. It's a great book of comics on their merits, with contributions from some of the industry's all-time great talents, but it's also a meaningful retrospective and memory book for Archie fans specifically. Okay, the sheet is great, but it doesn't tell me when this comes out. I don't know if this is actually out in your stores already. But this big fat thing, full of color comics of Archie, is $15. So if you're an Archie fan, find this thing. It's The Best of Archie Comics, 80 Years, 80 Stories. If it's not in your bookstore, then get them to order it. You know, this thing is out there and it's cheap. This next one, this is from Search Publishers, I believe. Is that who you are? This is from Karen Campbell, Search Ministries, and it's a new book. I think it comes out. Okay, this comes out in January of 2022, so this is not out yet. But it's new only in the most technical sense of that word. There is not a word, not literally a word in this book that will be new, because this is Christian apologetics, and there are no new Christian apologetics. There are only very old Christian apologetics that have been blown apart a million times. This is by John Hopper, and it's called Questioning God, Answers to Questions Worth Asking. And this is, let's see here, as Christians, how do we respond to people who have strong aversions to God and Christianity, whether from past experiences or lack of positive exposure to the Bible and the church? People who say things like, Christians are hypocrites. The Bible is an outdated book. If there's a God, why would he let bad things happen? I'm a good person, so I don't need your religion, and so on and so forth. Search Ministries is a national organization that regularly engages people who express thoughts just like these and invites them into discussions about the big questions of life. Search has found that whether from Portland to Charlotte, Nashville, or Minneapolis, people ask many of the same questions about God and Christianity. To address these questions, Search is excited to release Questioning God, Answers to Questions Worth Asking, by Search Houston leader John Hopper. So John Hopper leads Search Ministries in Houston. The 15 questions presented in Questioning God are asked by believers and unbelievers alike as far as Hopper is concerned and are worthy of a thoughtful and friendly response. And that is just what the reader will find in this book. In a welcoming style, Hopper provides well-reasoned answers to some of the most common questions about God and Christianity and lets readers decide if the answers he provides have merit. And I already know what I'm going to encounter in here. I don't know if the table of contents will give us a hint, but I already know what I'm going to find in here is going to be standard Christian apologetics. There's a chapter here, Is the Bible Out of Step with the Times? And the key points listed in the back are, every generation tends to look back on previous generations as being deficient in understanding about how we ought to live. This means that what is held as morally imperative today may be passé tomorrow. Progress in life, either individually or as a society, doesn't always mean adopting new ideas. Sometimes it means going back to time-tested ideas. There are several advantages to having a timeless biblical plumb line. This book is going to claim that the Bible is a plumb line, a straight measuring line of moral rectitude. And what are some of the advantages to having the Bible as your biblical plumb line? Advantage number one, it can keep us from the exhaustion of calling our own shots. Why be so exhausted? Isn't it exhausting to think on your own? Just let the Bible do that. I can't believe they actually wrote that. It can keep us from the exhaustion of calling our own shots. It can give us direction and confidence in the midst of competing voices. It can keep us from using power to hurt other people. Well, okay, but the Old Testament, time and time and time again, gives its readers stern instructions on the care and maintenance of slaves, where you can find them, how you can recruit them, how you can trick them into staying in your service, what you can and cannot physically do to them as your property. So what was that again? It can keep us from using our power to hurt other people? So is slavery one of the ideas that this book is going to say is, that what's this? Equality between the races? That's kind of passé, isn't it? What was it again? Every generation tends to look back on previous generations as being deficient in understanding. The Bible treats women as chattel, literally the physical possessions of their fathers or their husbands. It fully, the New and Old Testament, fully endorse the existence of slavery. When Jesus cures a leper, he doesn't issue a single word about how maybe we shouldn't cast them out in the first place, about maybe we should treat them instead. No, doesn't issue a single word about that. But this will include lots of other things too. I'm 100% sure that this thing, for instance, will talk about how the world came about. That's a big one, how the world came about. And one of the things, yes, okay, yes, it does. Okay, one of the things that that these things always say is the the fine-tuned principle of the universe. And here, this book says it. The universe is remarkably fine-tuned for life. The precision of the fine-tuning cannot be explained as a result of chance. When we see things that are fine-tuned, we regularly infer an intelligent curator. Thus, it is reasonable to infer from the fine-tuning of the universe that an intelligent creator like God exists. And I never know what to make of... I mean, I do know what to make of things like that. There's scarcely anybody on Earth left alive today who knows better what to make of things like that than I do. But just the opening contention, usually the Achilles heel of any of these apologetics, is that their opening contention is simply false. And the Bible as a moral plumb line, that is simply false. The Bible's own morality changes from book to book. And it is completely unacceptable morality in the 21st century, virtually anywhere in the world. You don't think that you shouldn't. If you do, you shouldn't. And most people don't think that women are the property of the nearest man. Most people don't think that slavery is okay. Most people don't think a whole bunch of those things. And the same thing is true with this fine-tuning business. The opening contention is demonstrably false. The universe is fine-tuned for life? The universe is fine-tuned for life? If I transport you 1,000 miles in any direction from where you are right now, you would almost certainly die. As a result of where you ended up, you would certainly die. If I transport you 1,000 miles down, you will definitely die. That part of the universe is not fine-tuned for life. If I transport you 1,000 miles up, you'll certainly die. Instantly. If I transport you 1,000 miles that way, probably you will end up in water, where you cannot survive. And if I were to transport you to the surface of the moon, Mars, Venus, Mercury, you would die instantly. You wouldn't even have time to feel agony. You would die instantly. Nothing can live anywhere else. As far as we know, no organic material of any kind can exist anywhere in this solar system, except on certain parts of the surface of this planet. Most of the surface of this planet, no. No. Most of the surface of this planet is, as the word surface indicates, rock. Nothing can live there. Most of the surface of this planet is inhospitable. You, as a naked human ape, would die in a great deal of the surface of this earth. And of course, you can't live at all in the water. And the things that live in the water can't live on the surface, and nothing that lives on earth can live in a vacuum of space. The only special pleading that you can use to get out of that is that the vacuum of space isn't real. If you accept that it is, if you're not one of these weirdos that thinks that we live in a snow globe, as is described in the Old Testament. So if you're a literal Bible believer, you will think that. But if you've accepted astronomy in the world, then it goes way beyond our solar system. The universe is entirely full of life-boiling radiation. Nothing can live anywhere. Outside the protective coronosphere of a world, of a planet with an atmosphere and a magnetic field like Earth, nothing can live at all in solar radiation that lives everywhere else, that exists everywhere else in the known universe. The universe is not fine-tuned for life. It's, if anything, fine-tuned drastically against life. But things like that are going to crop up all throughout here. I'd be willing to bet the book doesn't mention female chattel slavery. I'd be willing to bet it doesn't mention racial slavery. I'd be willing it doesn't mention the fact that that if you are literally being an apologist for the Bible, then you, as a Christian, living in, Sterling, Minnesota, going to a job every day, having kids, considering yourself a believing Christian, yeah, I believe it's the divinely inspired Word of God. Well, the divinely inspired Word of God commands Christians to kill Midianites. And it doesn't put a time limit on it. It says kill them all. Which means that if a Midianite showed up at the mall this weekend, you, right there in suburban Minnesota, would have to kill him. Your God commands you to kill him, to kill all Midianites, men, women, and children, tiny little babies, dash their heads against the rocks. Does anyone think that's moral? No, that's in the Bible, though. So these things, Christian apologetics always make these mistakes. They always go this route. Instead of going the route on which they are on solid ground, which is faith, your faith experience. If you have a genuine faith experience of your religion, whether it's Christianity or any other 10,000 religions, if you have a genuine faith experience, then I can't come anywhere near that, and I wouldn't want to if I could. If you feel that it makes you a better person, a stronger person, a more tolerant person, a happier person, and you feel it's faith that does that, who am I to say that you're wrong about that? I am no one to say that you're wrong about that. But Christian apologetics never go that route. I don't know why they don't. Instead, they always go this route. When this route is incredibly vulnerable the minute you're talking to someone who's not a questioning college student, the minute you're talking to someone who knows your faith's tenets and history as well or better than you do, Mr. Pastor in Houston, then you're destroyed. Absolutely destroyed. If you go this route, you are relying. The only way this route will work, the universe is fine-tuned for life. The only way that route will work is if you are confident that you will never meet someone who isn't dumb. That is bad. That's a bad route to take. Whereas, there are plenty of practicing Christian scientists in the American Science Association. There are plenty of practicing Buddhist or Muslim scientists in science organizations and fraternities, the Royal Society, all over the world. There are plenty of practicing, devout, believing faith holders in all of those scientific organizations. And the reason they're there is because they say, okay, don't talk to me about Planck's constant. I understand about, there's Frida Yoga. Wouldn't be a video without Frida Yoga. Oh, you want to get down here, baby? Oh, there you go. What are you doing? Oh, you stopped halfway, Frida. I can't hold these books here. Go on. There you go. What's the matter, baby? Huh? You're not going wandering because why? Hold on a minute, book two. We're having... Go on, baby. Go on. Oh, God. It's a full-blown emergency here. I don't know what's going on here. She wanted to get down. Now she's panicking to get back up here. Come on. Come on. Come on. Frida, now is the time for this. She has a thing about getting up on the couch. I know you see her do it in videos, but she doesn't like it. She needs to be encouraged to come up on the couch. I think because one time she was trying to jump up and slipped on the floor. There's no problem getting down. But I always tell her when she wants to get up for some reason, let's think about this carefully before you do it, because otherwise it's going to take forever, an act of Congress to get you back up here. Anyway, we're going to be done with the, where did it go? We're going to be done with Questioning God. It doesn't come out until next year, so I don't have to worry about it. But it literally won't have anything new in it, and that always bothers me. But anyway, we'll finish up with these next two. This is, do I have a, yes I do, I have a sheet on this. This comes out in early October. I can't remember if we saw this already. This is The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling. And it's a gothic horror novel. I think we did see this already. It delivers tantalizing, chilling storytelling that will have readers spooked as soon as they open the book. Practical, unassuming Jane Shoringfield has done the calculations and decided that the most secure path forward is this: a husband, in a marriage of convenience, who will allow her to remain independent and occupied with meaningful work. Well, yes, pretty good if you can get it. that's not bad at all. Uh, Her first choice, the dashing but reclusive Dr. Augustin Lawrence, agrees to her proposal with only one condition: that she must never visit Lindridge Hall, his crumbling family manor outside of town. Yet on the see, this is the problem I have with Gothic novels, especially contemporary Gothic novels, is that they are entirely populated by people who've never read or even heard of Gothic novels, which means they're practically science fiction. That's the same problem that I have with vampire novels, where the character, or zombie novels, where on page 60, one of the characters says, it's almost like they're moving, but not alive. When the reality that has existed for 100 years, anyway, yet on their wedding night, an accident strands her at his door in pitch black rainstorm, and she finds him changed. Gone is the bold, courageous surgeon, and in his place is a terrified, paranoid man, one who cannot tell reality from nightmare, and fears Jane is an apparition come to haunt him. By morning, Augustin is himself again, but Jane knows something is deeply wrong at Lindridge Hall and with the man she has so hastily bound her safety to. Set in a dark mirror version of post-war England. That's interesting, isn't it? I wonder what that means. Caitlin Starling... Okay. Well, again, this is the same mistake that we encounter in these pub sheets all the time. Caitlin Starling is not set in a dark mirror version of post-war England. Caitlin Starling is not set there. Her book is set there. It's simple English grammar, people. Don't make the mistake in your own writing, and let's make sure to be patient with it in the writing of others. In English, when you make a dependent clause like that, the next noun is the thing to which the dependent clause refers. There is no gapping, there is no delay. Not in English, in some languages, but not in English. Which means if you write, having left the room, the next noun has to be the thing that left the room. So Caitlin Starling was not set in a dark mirror version of post-war England. Her novel is. Caitlin Starling crafts a new kind of Gothic horror from the bones of the beloved canon. Now see, that's easy to fix. These problems, these weird dangling phrases are always easy to fix. Just rewrite the sentence. We don't have to change anything but the word order. Caitlin Starling crafts a new kind of Gothic horror, comma, set in a dark mirror version of post-war England, comma, from the bones of the beloved canon. It's still a little awkward, but it works. It works a lot better than... Anyway, this Crimson Peak-inspired story... Okay, what's Crimson Peak? Am I supposed to know that? What? Is that part of this book? This Crimson Peak-inspired story assembles, then upends, every expectation set in place by Shirley Jackson and Rebecca, and will leave readers shaken, desperate to begin again as soon as they are finished. Okay, well, I like the idea that that is a good recommendation for a book. Some books are like that. The minute you finish them, you want to start over. You want to just immediately start reading them over again. I had that same reaction with The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. The minute I finished it, I heard big Dracula novel. The minute I finished it, I wanted to start reading it again. Also, not intending the vampire theme here, but I felt the same way with Anne Rice's The Vampire Lestat. The minute I finished the book, I wanted to start it again. But I don't know what Crimson Peak is in this context. But anyway, and about the author, Caitlin Starling writes horror-tinged speculative fiction of all flavors. Her first book was The Luminous Dead, and it got awards. And her nonfiction has appeared in Nightmare and Uncanny. Starling also works in narrative design and has been paid to invent body parts. She's always on the lookout for new ways to inflict insomnia. I love it. I love it. All right, well, The Death of Jane Lawrence. We will see. We will see what this is. Jane Lawrence is obviously something to Augustin Lawrence, right? Sister, wife. This is the 5th of October, so I can read this right away. And then the final book, this has gone on forever, as they tend to do, is something we've seen before, so I can be brief. This is Adam Tooze's new book, Shutdown. Some of the initial economic after effects of COVID and how it shut the whole world economy down. We've seen this before in advanced copy. This is now the finished copy. I'm going to have to write to David Murphy out there in the wilds of Manitoba, or wherever it is that he is, and ask if he wants or has the finished copy of this. It breaks my heart when I see people going to new bookstores and buying new copies of these things. Uh, let's see here. The shocks of 2020 were great and small, disrupting the world economy, international relations, and the daily lives of virtually everyone on the planet. Never before did the entire global economy contract by 20% in a matter of weeks. Nor in the historic record of modern capitalism was there a moment in which 95% of the world's economies were suffering all at the same time. It's the point I've been making about COVID-19 since just a couple of months into it. We're living through one of the major events in our history. We all have it in common. We're all living through it at the same time. Utterly fascinating. Across the world, hundreds of millions lost their jobs, and over it all loomed the specter of pandemic and death. I've read this book. I thought it was terrific. Adam Tooze is not to be missed. And there you have it. Those are new arrivals. We have Shutdown by Adam Tooze. We have the Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling, who's been paid to invent new body parts. We have Questioning God by John Hopper. Let's see here. What else do we have? A Tale of Sorcery by Chris Colfer. New York Times bestselling author, Chris Colfer. We have The Things We Couldn't Say by Jay Coles. We have Competing with Idiots, a new book about the Mankiewicz brothers by a descendant of the Mankiewicz brothers. We have Archie, 80 Years, 80 Stories, this jam-packed full-color digest of Archie comics. And finally, Undaunted Courage, which is not a new release at all. It's just a new arrival here. So there's yet more books for you to conjugate on. So I'm gonna wrap this up at long last from now. Sorry about the disruption with the bean there. She wanted to get down, but then she immediately wanted to come back up again. So something's going on. I will consult with her now that the camera is turning off and find out what's going on in her tiny little head. But I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.